In the past month, the UK has been marking Islamophobia Awareness Month, an initiative intended to combat what organisers call the injustice and persecution faced by Muslims. Of course, the irony is lost on them. The same faith whose followers demand tolerance is in practice one of the least tolerant towards other religions. In Nigeria alone, Islamist groups have killed tens of thousands of Christians since 2009 and forced non-Islamists to pay a jizya, which is a tax set out for Christians and Jews to pay to stop themselves from getting persecuted. The religion's founder, Muhammad, married a 6-year-old girl named Aisha and consummated the marriage when she was 9. Practices that are recorded in the most authoritative Islamic sources, such as Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Muhammad even forced her to breastfeed on his male companions. Yeah. I'll walk you through all of this in this episode. Enjoy. In 2024, Islamic terrorism claimed 8,352 lives worldwide. That year saw several high-profile attacks, including a shooting by 2 Islamic State gunmen at Istanbul's Church of Santa Maria during Sunday Mass, which killed 1 person, as well as coordinated assaults on a synagogue and 2 churches in Russia's Dagestan region, resulting in over 20 deaths. Yet the most prevalent tactic employed by Islamic radicals remains suicide bombings, with around 98% of such attacks since the 1980s attributed to Salafi jihadist groups. Islamists often frame these operations using Arabic phrases such as istashhad and shaheed. In English, these mean to seek martyrdom. Female genital mutilation is the practice of partially or totally removing external female genitalia for non-medical reasons. It's a practice that has 0 health benefits and, to the contrary, can result in severe medical issues. More than 230 million girls and women alive today have undergone FGM in around 30 countries, typically situated within the continents of Africa, the Middle East and Asia, with the majority of the girls affected undergoing the practice between infancy and the age of only 15. Out of the 230 million women and girls affected, around 200 million of them are Muslim, with 98% of girls in Somalia, 91% in Egypt, 87% in Sudan and 83% in Mali. While it is more seen as a cultural tradition in Islamic countries rather than a religious practice, some could argue that it's done to uphold the fundamental rules within the Quran surrounding sexuality. For example, it reduces a woman's sexual desires, prevents premarital sex, and ensures modesty and prevents infidelity. Now, as mentioned at the start of this video, the Prophet Muhammad, who Muslims regard as the perfect example of human conduct, married Aisha when she was 6 years old and consummated the marriage when she was 9. Because the Quran and Islamic tradition instruct believers to follow Muhammad's example in all matters, many Muslims seek to emulate him, just as Christians strive to follow Jesus. Now, one common expression of this admiration is naming children after him. And in the UK, it's no different, Londonistan. In 2024 alone, 4,661 boys in England and Wales were given his name. The desire to imitate the Prophet extends to all other areas of life as well. In a number of Muslim-majority countries, child marriage remains common practice, often justified by the actions of their religious prophet. Today, approximately 120 million girls worldwide are or have been married as children, the vast majority of them in Muslim-majority regions. Some of the highest rates include 76% in Nigeria, 61% in Chad, 54% in Mali, 51% in Bangladesh and 45% in Somalia. Another serious issue linked to Islamic cultural practice is widespread consanguineous marriages, also known as first cousin marriages, which significantly increase the risk of serious genetic disorders in children. Although British Pakistanis make up roughly 3% of the UK population, they account for around 1/3 of all children born in Britain with recessive genetic conditions. This disproportionate figure is largely attributed to the high rate of cousin marriages in Pakistani communities, a practice that has somehow persisted across generations. An estimated 610 million Muslims worldwide engage in the practice, and the 25 countries with the highest rate of it: all Muslim majority. Pakistan, shockingly, leads with an astonishing 61.2%. The high prevalence of consanguineous marriages has serious health consequences. Globally, an estimated 75 to 115 million Muslims are affected by genetic disorders directly linked to inbreeding. Studies show that children born to first cousin parents face roughly double the risk of serious birth defects or genetic conditions compared to children of unrelated parents. Now, the biological reason is quite straightforward. When parents are closely related, they are far more likely to carry the same harmful recessive genes. If both parents pass on the same faulty gene, the child can receive it in a dominant capacity. And thus it's always better when the two parents have significantly different genetic systems. Honor killings are a prominent Islamic practice that claims the lives of 5,000 women and girls annually, worldwide. Though many experts believe the true figure is significantly higher, possibly exceeding 20,000, due to widespread underreporting. Most documented cases occur in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Jordan, Turkey, and Iraq. Following the 1979 Iranian Revolution, the new administration sought to integrate the church with the state by imposing a mandatory dress code for women. Less than a month after the revolution's supreme leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini declared the hijab compulsory for all women in the workplace, stating that any woman entering a government office should wear one, as they would be naked without it. By 1980, women were barred from entering government or public buildings without a hijab. In 1983, Iran's penal code was amended to enforce compliance, stipulating that women who appear in public without a religious hijab will be sentenced to whipping up to 74 lashes. In practice, however, numerous women such as Sabah Afshari, Yazaman Ariana, and Mahsa Amini were imprisoned, where they were also tortured. One of the most prominent and tragic examples is the case of Gina Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman. In September 2022, she was arrested by the morality police, yes, this is actually what they call themselves, in Tehran for not wearing her hijab properly. She died in hospital custody shortly after, under highly suspicious circumstances. Iranian authorities claimed she suffered a heart attack at the police station, fell into a coma, and died. However, eyewitness accounts from women detained alongside her, as well as independent inquiries, indicate she was severely beaten and tortured by officers during her detention. Her death sparked widespread protests across Iran, where 92 people were killed during. Apostasy. The formal renunciation or abandonment of a religion is punishable by death in at least 10 Muslim-majority countries, including Iran and Saudi Arabia. These nations, where Sharia law often forms the basis of their legal system, treat leaving Islam as akin to treason. Once the church and state are merged, leaving Islam is seen as also betraying the state. Furthermore, leaving Islam is illegal in at least 22 countries. While we often hear about evil white men owning slaves, what is often omitted is that the Arab world is still very much active in this industry, with them enslaving 10 to 18 million Africans, which is comparable, if not higher, than the 12 to 15 million slaves traded during the transatlantic slave trade. Following on from fact 9, modern slavery still exists, with 14.6 million people across Muslim-majority countries being affected. Saudi Arabia leads with 740,000 victims. Grooming gangs are a known issue within the UK and are primarily Islamic-led. They've plagued areas such as Birmingham, Telford, Rochdale, Oldham, Rotherham, and most areas where English people are slowly becoming a minority. 83% of those prosecuted between 1997 and 2017 for their role in a grooming gang are Muslim. Another fact regarding grooming: over 4,000 victims have been identified in 2023 to 2024 in England and Wales. This number is iffy, however, with beliefs that the actual number of historical victims could exceed 100,000, at least according to the Grooming Gang Task Force. Many young girls outright refuse to contact the police because they are treated as if they are filth. For example, in 2010, then MP Jackie Smith and Prime Minister Gordon Brown circulated documents saying that these female children chose to be prostitutes, and it was all down to a lifestyle choice. In some areas such as Rotherham, the police actually dropped off one of the girls to a man that was sexually exploiting and abusing her. While activists in Western Europe protest the systematic oppression of Islam and wave pride flags, homosexuality remains punishable by death in 12 countries worldwide, 11 of which have a Muslim majority. The first people in history to systematically practice homosexuality, where men would approach other men lustfully instead of their wives, were the inhabitants of Sodom and the surrounding cities. Allah sent the prophet Lot to warn them, but they rejected him and mocked his call to purity. As a result, Allah destroyed the cities by raining down stones of baked clay, saving only Prophet Lot and his believers in the household. Surah Al-Araf 7:80-84. And we sent Lot when he said to his people, "Do you commit such immorality as no one has preceded you with from among the worlds? Indeed, you approach men with desire instead of women. Rather, you are a transgressing people." So we saved him and his family except his wife, and we rained upon them a rain of stones. Then see how was the end of the criminals. This is why when they execute someone for sexual immorality, it is symbolic to stone them to death. Not only does a tolerant religion criminalize and execute those who are homosexuals, apostates, or leave the religion, but blasphemy is also illegal in 32 Muslim-majority countries. In 8 of them, it carries a death penalty. When the Quran was written, the word blasphemy did not exist. Instead, it was labeled shirk and kufr. Anyone who commits shirk against Allah or his messengers is also to receive a painful or humiliating punishment. Quran 9:61. And there are those who hurt the Prophet by saying, "He listens to anyone." Say, O Prophet, he listens to what is best for you. He believes in Allah, has faith in the believers, and is a mercy for those who believe among you. Those who hurt Allah's messenger will suffer a painful punishment. And then you have Quran 33:57. Indeed, those who abuse Allah and his messenger, Allah has cursed them in this world and the hereafter, and prepared them for a humiliating punishment. Building on the Quranic mandate for painful or humiliating punishment for shirk and kufr, the text explicitly brands all Christians as guilty of blasphemy. Quran 5:72-73 slams the Trinity and Jesus as God as the ultimate shirk. Those who say Allah is the Messiah, son of Mary, have certainly fallen into disbelief. The Messiah himself said, "O children of Israel, worship Allah, my Lord and your Lord. Surely whoever associates others with Allah, then Allah has forbidden paradise for them and their home will be the fire, and the wrongdoers will have no helpers." Those who say Allah is one in a Trinity have certainly fallen into disbelief. There is only one God. If they do not stop saying this, those who disbelieve among them will be afflicted with a painful punishment. This explains why Muslims feel compelled to target and persecute Christians worldwide. They're seen as blasphemers against Allah and his messengers. The toll? Between 2009 and 2023, Islamist persecution has killed over 52,250 Christians in Nigeria alone, per reports from Inter-Society and echoed by Open Doors. The Islamic practice of religiously approved lying about your faith to non-Muslims, taqiyya, which is usually limited to life-threatening situations, and then you've got kitman, which is lying by omission, are both religiously sanctioned forms of deception, especially when used, primarily kitman, to advance Islam. All 4 Sunni madhabs permit it when a Muslim's life is in danger, but major classical scholars, like Al-Tabari, Al-Razi, Al-Kutabari, and modern ones such as Yusuf al-Qaradi explicitly allow broader use when it advances Islam or protects the faith/community. In 12th Shia Islam, which is the largest branch of Shia Islam and encompasses Iran, Hezbollah, Iraqi militias, etc., taqiyya is near universal and openly encouraged until the return of the hidden imam, including proactive deception of non-believers. And so the bottom line is, lying to infidels in Islam isn't fringe. It's mainstream doctrine when it serves the cause and advances the ideology. Under Islam, Christian persecution has displaced more than 16.2 million Christians in sub-Saharan Africa, half of the region's 34.5 million total displaced people. This mass exodus stems from jihadist groups like Boko Haram, ISWAP, and Fulani militias who target Christian villages for land grabs, church burnings, and killings, driving believers into squalid IDP camps where faith-based harassment continues. Nigeria alone accounts for 5 million of these, with over 150,000 total deaths from Islamist violence in the region over the last decade. Tying back to the Quranic calls for punishing blasphemers like Christian via shirk/kufr in 572, this isn't random, it's doctrinal jihad in action, turning fertile farmlands into ghost towns. Christian persecution under Islam affects 365 million Christians worldwide, exposing them to discrimination, violence, and severe restrictions on their religious freedom, including the infamous jizya tax. That's 1 in 7 Christians globally facing high levels of persecution and discrimination, up from 360 million last year, with Islamic oppression as the #1 driver in 37 of the top 50 worst countries. In these hotspots, Afghanistan, Somalia, Nigeria, and Pakistan being a few, believers endure killings, over 5,600 in 2023 alone, church burnings, forced conversions, and daily harassment, all rooted in doctrines like Quran 572 and dhimmi subjugation. And jizya? This Quranic poll tax stipulated in verse 929 of the Quran on non-Muslims framed as payment for protection in exchange for second-class status and military exemption, humiliates dhimmis, protected subjects but still labelled inferior, as a symbol of submission. Abolished in most modern Muslim states by the 19th century, it's making a deadly comeback via jihadists, like in Mali from 2024, where JNM militants demanded $41 per month per adult Christian, or they face expulsion and death if they don't pay it. ISIS did the same thing in Iraq and Syria between 2014 and 2017, extorting thousands before massacres. It's also a well-known ongoing practice in Palestine. As mentioned previously in this well-known trivia when it comes to Islam, Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 and consummated the marriage when she was 9. Well, why did he wait 3 years? Quran 65:4 explicitly sets a 3-month waiting period for prepubescent girls who have not menstruated before they can be married off again, proving child marriage and consummation before puberty is divinely legislated for all time. And those who no longer expect menstruation among your women, if you doubt, then their period is 3 months, and also for those who have not menstruated, and for those who are pregnant, and whoever fears Allah, he will make for him of his matter ease. This verse proves that the age of consummation is when a girl goes through puberty, which is signified when she has her first period, although they can be married off prior to her first period. Now, this verse isn't a metaphor. Many classical tafsirs, such as Al-Tabari, Al-Qutubah, Ibn Kathir, etc., unanimously say it includes little girls. This sunnah justifies child marriage in over 40 Muslim countries, with 700,000 girls forced annually in the Middle East and North Africa. Today, Iran's legal marriage age for girls is 9, with judicial approval being even younger. Yemen has no minimum age, and child marriage fatwas citing 65:4 remain common across the Islamic world. Quran 4:24 greenlights raping captive women, also forbidden unmarried women, except female captives in your possession. Classical tafsirs like Ibn Kathir and Al-Tabari confirm this permits sex with female slaves/captives, even if they are married, without consent, as they're what your right hand possesses. Muhammad, the perfect example, Quran 33:21, embodies this as a warlord. He led 27 plus military campaigns, capturing women as concubines to rape and pillage. Think Safiya bint Huwai, widow of a Jewish leader taken post-Khaybar raid, and Rayana bint Zayd from the Banu Khazari massacre survivors, both forced into his bed. Fast forward, citing this exact verse, ISIS enslaved up to 7,000 Yazidi women and girls from 2014 to 2017, subjugating 70% to systematic rape and sex slavery as spoils of war. Their fatwas quoted 424 to justify auctioning infidel virgins and breeding programs. While apologists cry, ISIS is radical Islam, not the real thing. Let's check the receipts. While they hurl gay people off rooftops in ISIS-controlled territories, 12 Muslim-majority countries still enforce a death penalty for homosexuality today. It's not just radical Islam, it's Islam in a nutshell. Muhammad didn't just permit sex slavery, he was a major practitioner. While married to 11 wives at once, hypocritically exceeding the 4-wife limit set for other Muslims, he personally owned dozens of concubines and sex slaves whom his right hand possessed. Two well-known examples would include Rayhana bint Zayd, who was a Jewish widow from Banu Khazari, enslaved after 600 to 900 men of her tribe were beheaded. After they surrendered, by the way, she became his concubine. And Maria the Copt, who was a Christian slave gifted by Egypt's ruler, Now, Muhammad had sex with her in Hafsa's house, which triggered the scandal in Quran 66, 1-5. While I don't have time to go through this today, I heavily suggest doing some reading up on it so you can learn more about the degeneracy Muhammad was involved in. As mentioned on the last point, Banu Khazari was taken as a sex slave after 600 to 900 men of her tribe were beheaded. Well, in 627 AD, Medina, after the Banu Qurayza Jews surrendered following a 25-day siege, Muhammad personally ordered the beheading of 600 to 900 men and pubescent boys. Trenches were dug in the marketplace, the prisoners were brought out in batches, forced to sit at the edge and decapitated one by one. The slaughter lasted from morning until night. Their wives and children were enslaved. The women and girls, including Rihanna, whom Muhammad personally kept as a sex slave, were distributed as war booty. Saudi Arabia, self-proclaimed guardian of Islam's holiest site, has executed 1,816 people by sword beheadings from January 2014 through to June 2025 per Amnesty International and official Saudi press agency data. That's an average of 152 per year, often for non-lethal crimes like drug offences or sorcery under Sharia law. ISIS, the caliphate that weaponized the same texts, outplaced them in Shia bloodlust. Over 3,895 executions from June 2014 to early 2016 alone, including beheadings, burnings and mass shootings. 2,114 civilians tossed from rooftops or buried alive for blasphemy, apostasy or just being Shia, as they are viewed as being heretical polytheists, deviating from their ultra-extremist Sunni Salafi jihadist ideology. But what's the difference? ISIS is radical while Saudi Arabia is moderate? Both draw from the exact same well. Quran mandated hudud punishments as mandated in 533 of the Quran. Saudi Arabia calls it justice, Syria calls it divine. The same sword, just different swings. Quran Surah An-Nisa 434 explicitly authorises husbands to beat their wives as a disciplinary measure to keep them in check. Men are in charge of women. As to those women on whose part you see ill conduct, admonish them first, next refuse to share their beds, and last beat them. But if they return to obedience, seek not against them means of annoyance. Classical tafsirs like Ibn Kathir and Al-Tabiyah confirm this permits physical striking, non-severe, non-facial, and without marks, as if that makes it better. As the first step in correcting nushers, which means disobedience or rebellion, rooted in Muhammad's example. While the hadiths soften it and say, do not beat them, the verse's plain text remains Sharia's basis for spousal discipline in countries like Iran, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia. The result? In Iran, where, as is typical for Islam, there is no separation of church and state, and thus this verse underpins family law. Up to 66% of women suffer domestic violence. That's over 20 million Iranian women enduring beatings. 20 million. Tying back to Quran 434's beat them, license for disobedient wives, honour-based violence escalates to face mutilation. Acid attacks that scar women for life as a punishment for perceived dishonour, such as refusing marriage, immoral relationships, or even just stepping out unescorted. Globally, 1,500 to 2,000 women suffer acid attacks annually, with nearly all, 90% plus, occurring in Muslim-majority countries like Pakistan, shocker, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Iran. Stoning or rajam is a hooded punishment for married adulterers. Derived from hadiths of the prescribed legal punishments for followers of Islam set out in Sahih Muslim 1691-4206 and Abu Dawud 4416, not the Quran but enshrined in all four Sunni schools and Shia fiqh as Sharia law, the ritual, women buried up to the chest, men up to the waist, in a pit to immobilise them and prolong the agony while they're stoned, ensuring a slow, public and humiliating death by bludgeoning with stones, not so large as to kill instantly nor so small as to be ineffective, as stated by classical jurist Al-Shafi'i. However, to add sadistic sport to the execution, if you escape from the pit, you're free. Today it's codified in at least 10 Muslim majority countries where judges can impose it for adultery or sodomy. Iran leads with 150 stonings between 1979 and 2009. Because of commandments like the one set out in 434, explicitly telling Muslims to beat their disobedient wives, stoning disproportionately targets females. Evidence standards favours men, turning rape allegations from women into adultery convictions. Jizya, the Quranic poll tax stipulated in 929 of the Quran, which we did briefly explain on Fact 18, levied punitively on non-Muslims, also labelled dhimmis, under Islamic rule framed as payment for protection in exchange for exemption from military services, but really a symbol of humiliation and subjugation, marking believers as superior, as stipulated in 933. The jizya has pre-Islamic roots and was an existing Arabian tribal practice. When one tribal conquered another, the defeated group paid a protection tax, often referred to as the jizya or something similar, to avoid annihilation or enslavement. After the conquest of Khaybar, a Jewish oasis in 628 CE, Muhammad took this pre-Islamic practice and implemented it into his religion, imposing 50% of the annual crop on the Jews as tribute. In the same period, he made treaties with Christian and Jewish tribes in Fadak, Tamar, and the Gulf of Aqaba, requiring fixed cash payments. Furthermore, during the famous treaty with the Christians of Najran, he required 2,000 sets of clothing, which at the time were worth 2 dinars each. In medieval Egypt and Syria, the jizya was several months' wages annually. Several months. Marital rape is a concept that does not exist in Islamic law. In fact, in Islam it is impossible to rape your wife, considering a wife has no right to refuse sex, ever. Quran 2:223 declares, "Your wives are a tilth, half for you. So go into your tilth whenever you like." Classical tafsirs like Ibn Kathir, Al-Tabari and Al-Qurtubi unanimously interpret this as unrestricted sexual access, anytime, any position, even if she's on a camel's saddle or menstruating. This is supported in many hadiths like Sahih al-Bukhari 32:31. If a husband calls his wife to his bed and she refuses and he spends the night angry with her, the angels curse her until morning. Or Sahih Muslim 1436, by him in whose hand is my soul, no man calls his wife to bed and she refuses him, except that the one in the heaven is angry with her until her husband is pleased with her. As a result, in Sharia-based legal systems such as Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia, marital rape is not recognized as a crime because obedience is sex is part of the marriage contract. Refusal is treated as nushuz, meaning disobedience, which triggers the disciplinary steps in Quran 434, up to and including beating. Islam spells it out plainly. A woman is permanently half a man. When I explained earlier that evidence standards favour men where a potential rape allegation from a woman could be easily turned into an adultery conviction where the woman is stoned to death, this is the norm in most Islamic countries, with nearly all other crimes. In court, her testimony is worth exactly half of a man's. Quran 2:282 says, if 2 male witnesses can't be found, call 1 man and 2 women, so that if one of them errs, the other can remind her. The classical scholars are brutally honest about why: deficiency in intelligence and memory. That single verse still rules in most Sharia courts today. 1 man outweighs 2 women, full stop. When someone dies, the inequality is carved in stone again. Quran 4:11 is crystal clear. Allah instructs you concerning your children. A male receives a share equal to that of 2 females. The daughter gets half a brother's portion. The widow usually gets an 1/8, while the sons carve up the rest. Need, age, contribution, none of it matters. Allah has spoken. Muhammad's favourite wife, Aisha, probably owing to her age, openly practiced adult breastfeeding to create mahram status, so adult men could visit her unveiled without violating modesty rules. In Sahih Muslim 1453a to 1453c, Salim, the freed slave of Abu Hadafi, was already a grown man. Muhammad ordered Aisha and other wives to breastfeed him 5 times so he could become a son by milk and enter their homes freely. Aisha took the ruling literally and applied it for the rest of her life whenever she wanted an unrelated man to visit her unveiled. She made him drink her breast milk, directly or from a cup. She did this with multiple adult male companions after Muhammad's death. She told the other wives, "Do not consider him Maharam until he suckles from you." Some wives refused, saying it only applies to infants, but Aisha insisted the ruling was general and just kept doing it. The Prophet's child bride, now widow, literally breastfed grown men so they could sit with her alone, continuing this tradition willingly when her husband died. 30 days. For 30 days, people spread awareness of the bigotry and Islamophobic rhetoric aimed at Islamists across the globe, standing in solidarity with the plain racism Muslims have to face and go through on a daily basis. This is despite legislated child marriage, the rape of captive sex slaves, the beatings of disobedient wives, the stoning of women for committing adultery after they've been unjustly raped, beheadings of non-believers, the enforcement of a jizya tax, and the many terror attacks that continue to this very day, mainly perpetuated by Muslims. This is not historical or ancient Islam. This is the modern reality of a religion that has not progressed since the Dark Ages. It is not radical Islam. It is not cultural misinterpretation. It is Islam unmasked. The Quran, the Sunnah, the Sharia, the 1400-year pattern. Every atrocity we've shown you, every tyrannical law is defended somewhere right now by a highly respected Islamic scholar, judge, cleric or government official, citing the exact same verses and hadiths that I've shown before you. You were told it's a religion of peace. You were told the terrorists hijacked it. You were told we misinterpreted the text. The evidence above says otherwise. The texts are clear. The history is bloody. The present is still paying the price. Thank you very much for watching. Please click the subscribe button down below. My name is James Harvey from Vox Populi, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.